I think this starts with, as a logical sequence. The first one is communication of the issue, making people aware. Now, I'm not sure whether I can get Queen Sylvia of Sweden to call every CEO in North America, but we can give it a try. I think one of the things that we're taking as our mission for the Business Coalition is to make those calls to the CEOs, to the presidents of companies. And we've already got an amazing critical mass, because if you go along to a corporation and say, we have LexisNexis, Ford, we have Coca-Cola Company, we have Manpower Group, why don't you join us? So it's like a snowball, and it is moving. If you think that your company is interested in some ways, we're just really starting the Business Coalition now, so you'll see much more about it. And in fact, we hope to make an announcement over the next 2 weeks at a rather impressive location in Washington that's a bit white, with a gentleman in there who's coming up to re-election. So we will be getting this message out very strongly in the US. The other thing that's exciting is that, as you know, the Freedom Project on CNN has been running for a year. They've been running stories about trafficking, examples from all over the world. They're talking to this Business Coalition about us partnering them to take the Freedom Project forward to show corporations how they can make a difference. You know, great examples. There are great examples in the corporate world. I mean, some of the companies that you've talked to, that you see here, other companies like, you know, that have had a bad reputation in the past, like Gap, companies like The Body Shop, companies that got caught out in the UK, like Marks and Spencer, and I will name names. They found that they were doing things in their supply chain that absolutely shocked them. But what they did and what differentiated them was they did something about it. So we're trying to get the message out. You'll hear a lot more about Business Coalition. When the gentleman that lives in the white building announces something with us, then people listen to it generally. We've got a huge campaign coming up. So we're launching BCAT. If you want to get involved already and start looking at things for the business community, have a look at the End Human Trafficking Now site. Just Google it, EHTN or End Human Trafficking Now. And as I said, we've already signed up 14,000 corporations to check their supply chains and to change their internal policies to say that they are dead against any form of the utilization of people as commodities. So there are things already there, but you're going to see in the US, and that's the reason we started. Dawn was one of the founders. We started BCAT was we were dissatisfied with the activity in the American corporate community. And we can't solve the problem, but sure as hell we can be a big influence on it here in corporate America.
Businesses, when you say trafficking, you know, between the legal department and the PR department, you know, it's a big, right? It's like trafficking. We don't want anywhere near that. So the message is different depending upon what sector you're in to the company in terms of the return. The second that we found really interesting, and some of the early on members who are now, you know, full-on board members and committed to this, said that this was a safe space for businesses to talk to businesses. So this is business to business, feeling in a safe space, sharing in the quality of the companies that are in it. I do think that we're going to see more and more companies want to at least have a conversation with the Business Coalition. So I see this as actually probably, you know, really starting to engage the corporate sector in a way that it hasn't been engaged collectively in the past.
No corporation wants to invite additional legislation. What I would say is that those companies, and I think the Business Coalition Against Trafficking is trying to address this, is to be forward-leaning and to start doing these things and share best practices before they're legislated. From a company perspective, I don't think companies are really going to support additional legislation. I don't know how you feel.
Just as a perception of the transparency law in California, I talked to the state attorney general, or whatever the top legal guy's called, and I said, this really is a flawed piece of legislation. First of all, it's not compulsory. You can just say, well, I'm not signing up for that. You can just say that. You've got to announce that you are not doing it.
Exactly.
And companies can't not do it. And secondly, the thresholds financially are way too high, because it's over 100 million, isn't it, or something?
So 3,200, 3,600 companies worldwide are impacted by the California law.
The next thing that we need to recognize is that there are other states that have actually gone beyond that transparency regulation. And I was amazed when I went to Washington State. They have legislation in Washington State that is much more rigorous with regard to the responsibility of a corporation there to check its supply chain. So I think there are some good practices. I do find your legal system in America somewhat bewildering, that you've got to pass everything state by state. But I think there is a movement from, I've seen an encouragement from the US Department of State, Office of Trafficking in Persons, to adopt or to at least attempt to introduce the similar kinds of legislation in many states. But this just takes a long time. And I agree with Dawn that we've just got to persuade corporations that get ahead of the game. Don't wait for a new act to come along. Get ahead of the game because you have a responsibility to human beings.
That's right.
So what companies like Marks and Spencer's, The Gap, Levi's, Nordstrom's, Nike, Compass Foods, Whole Foods, PepsiCo, to name some of the more progressive, really on top of it companies, what they have learned in their sector, they can share then across sectors. So what's learned in the apparel and footwear industry can actually help someone who's trying to figure out, cocoa or fishing in West Africa. So we're finding and that's another really important reason to actually suggest to companies to join, is because there's a great opportunity to learn in a safe space from peers. And we know that peer-to-peer learning is really powerful.
At Manpower Group, strangely given our name, we kind of understand how powerful women are, given that we are the largest women's employer in the world. It's interesting. One of the things that we analysed, and what we're trying to do is to take every one of our initiatives and run it like a business, because we want it to be effective, efficient, to deliver the goods, and the goods being stopping modern-day slavery. One thing we found is that corporations are somewhat confused when they look at the world of not-for-profit. And one of our missions is to explain it, to give a roadmap to all of our members and future members and corporations, small to medium-sized enterprises, all the way to Fortune top 10. Because companies don't understand. They don't understand two things: where they go to partner someone. So we're going to try and produce an idiot's guide to the not-for-profit world. I'm not saying everybody in a corporation's an idiot, but they just don't understand the not-for-profit world. The second one is, as part of our mission, we are trying to encourage groups of like-minded not-for-profits to make bigger consortia, to get together more closely. It's my impression that getting not-for-profit organizations together is a bit like buying little boutique consulting companies, which we have done in the past, and it's really hard to get them to cooperate with each other because everyone thinks they are the best in the world at what they do. And let me tell you, on some occasions, they are absolutely the best at their very specific niche. However, what we're trying to do is one of the mechanisms that we will introduce as BCAT is an opportunity for not-for-profits to cooperate more closely with each other without losing their core passion and values. Because we can help bigger groups of like-minded organizations find better routes to financing, raising money, building their capacity, helping them build a better back office, helping them build a better brand, helping them get the job done more professionally. So that we see that as one of our biggest tasks, because the people that know how to get this job done are the people that are working in this area, in this field. We run corporations. We're there to make a few dollars. So we need the not-for-profit world, but we've got to scale it, and we've got to make it more effective.